Growing up in Calcutta has been a privilege, and I have been. My mother actually has taken me to a lot of Hollywood movies and European movies and international movies that would happen. She's a big film enthusiast and a film buff, and for her, cinema is a part of growing up, and as a is something that people live with. It's a part of life rather than only for entertainment purpose. So yeah, so every year when the Oscar nominated films would come to Calcutta, and there would be have this retrospective in the New Empire Theatre or the Globe Theatre, my mother would definitely take me there. And she had no she actually had nobody to take to those films, because her circle of friends or in the family, people were not so interested in English films or foreign films. In at home, my relatives, my grandmother, come from a joint family, so everybody is a big fan of Tapan Sinha, Ritvik Ghatak, Satyajit Ray films. So growing up, there was two cultural cinema impact that I had. One was from all Satyajit Ray films I watched when I grew up, and on the other hand, at home, I was watching Satyajit Ray, Tapan Sinha, Ritvik Ghatak movies as a part of my daily routine. And while with my mother, every other day we would step out and watch different kind of Hollywood movies, whether it is the Star Wars, the entire Star Wars, or it is 2001 A Space Odyssey, or it is the Bicycle Thief. So going to Nandan, the cultural cinema hub of West Bengal, or going to Max Miller Bhavan to watch retrospectives, those things has been a part of my childhood. So this is how cinema happened to me. If you ask me what to recall, I would say Shonar Kella would be one of them. I would say growing up, Star Wars would be one of them. I would say Apocalypse Now would be one of them. So few of the films, these films I grew up with. Then there are the films by Tapan Sinha, which have really also, like jo baad mein the film that became Bawarchi, so it was remade from Bengali from Tapan Sinha's film. So yeah, so films like that I really grew up with. Because I did not know honestly that cinematography existed beyond after I watched Apocalypse, before till I watched Apocalypse Now actually. For me, cinematography, I was like any other film goer who did not for who the story mattered the most, the emotions mattered the most, but never the technical or the cinematography part of it. The I actually remember that scene when I watched Apocalypse Now for I think the 50th or 60th time on a big screen on a big projection in London, in Calcutta. And I remember that scene where Martin Sheen meets Marlon Brando for the first time, and it is some stellar work by Vittorio Storaro, the cinematographer. And the play of light and shadow on a superstar's face is something that created impact in my mind. And I thought that if cinematography can be this powerful, a visual language can be this powerful, for me it was never the technique, the camera, the lights. It was never all of that. It was always what I am doing, what is coming out eventually, and how does an audience react to that. So that was my first beginning curiosity about cinematography. And coming to the second part of your question is, did I do photography? No. I would like to say that I from my batch in FTII in 2008, I was the only cinematography student who did not have a photography background. I actually didn't even know how many stops 50 mm block lens had, like, so I was a complete blank sheet when it came to photography. I learned all my skills of photography and cinematography, and I'm still continuing to learn today. It all started from FTII. Before that, I was only a big film buff. I was a film enthusiast. I was a cinephile, if you may call it. And I used to love and watch cinema. That is the only USP I had. And then my life changed after my selection to FTII, and I started taking cinematography very seriously. It's been 14 years that I've been doing cinematography. It's a very small time compared to the amount of time people spend in this industry. But Yeah, I am really grateful to FTII Film Institute in Pune, who has given me the opportunity to learn cinematography and to practice it. Without FTII, I cannot imagine being here doing what I am doing today. My teachers in FTII has really helped me to go to wade through the the tricky path of cinematography in a changing landscape. That's the tricky part, that cinematography is changing every day. The cinematography is changing, so we have to also keep updating ourselves to the latest things that are happening. So these days, so we have learned cinematography by mostly shooting film in black and white color in FTII, because that is where we got it from. Now, since cinematography is changing, the entire modern generation of cinematographers don't have the discipline of shooting film. They don't come from that discipline. So what happens is that most of the work looks very out of the things look very gimmicky. Image looks gimmicky. I feel that image looks gimmicky, and the whole naturalistic way of looking at an image, looking at light, understanding the discipline of working, that one take has to be that one take has to work out, rather than doing rolling the camera on every rehearsal. So yes, that discipline has really helped me. That discipline helps in exposure pegging mostly in modern cinematography, in any OTT platform. The kind of content that we watch, the young DPs who shoot with digital cameras, you see there is exposures are all over the place, and you can watch it even after they are graded, because you can only control so much. I believe that people of our generation who has shot film mostly has come from a film background. The discipline of shooting that has helped us to keep a consistency with our work. And I believe every day when I go out to shoot, whenever I go out to shoot, I am extremely grateful to those days, painstaking days, when I had to wake up every day at 5 o'clock in the morning before the sunrise, and load the our Nikon cameras with black and white film, and keep shooting, because the idea of contrast, the idea of the shadows, the highlights, the idea of where you peg an exposure, and where does your mid-tone shift, depending on your exposure pegging. So that training only comes from shooting celluloid. That cannot happen when you are constantly shooting and checking an image. The one thing that people have to understand, that back then when we used to shoot, we had no chance of watching the image just after we have clicked it. So we are completely basing our judgment on our eye and on our calculations on the light that is falling there. So that training is something that I feel is missing in modern day cinematography, in India at least. So that part. Then secondly, I also I get influenced by a lot of cinematographers over a period of time, the kind of work that I want to do. And when I like for an example, I really love the handheld work of Barry Ackroyd. He's Ken Loach's cinematographer, and there was a time when I watched all Barry Ackroyd's work, and I started understanding, and his interviews, and I started understanding that what a reactionary camera is. You know, when a camera is on a shoulder, it can be stable, but not necessarily has to be stable. The camera can react, you know. So that is something that I learned from Barry Ackroyd's work, you know, how does a camera on a shoulder can create drama, can create action, can create different emotions. The camera will create that emotion, but just by reacting to the dialogue or the action that is happening in front of it. So yeah, so that is one of my handheld influences. When it comes to shot taking, shot design, there is there is Roger Deakins, then there is Greg Fraser. There are so many of them. So, but yeah, since the landscape of cinematography is changing every day, we need to keep ourselves updated and have our basics really strong. Because with the changing of the technology, the basics of cinematography or cinema is not changing. You know, it's just the outer paraphernalia that is changing. So rather than focusing on those, we should focus on our discipline, our basics, our groundwork, and try to create the image that we can. Yes, I have. I have been very lucky. I'm grateful because of my FTI days and Institute days that I started assisting when I was in FTI. I assisted Kavin Jaktiani. I have assisted Kiran Devhans. I have assisted Avinash Arun. Um, to name a few. And our associations and our FTI, in FTI I have assisted batches after batches, you know, of my senior even juniors in their projects. And I must tell you that the restrictions and limitations under which we have been trained in FTI, it prepares us for any situation in the industry. We used to complain about that back a lot, but now I really understand that why we had to struggle with limitations back in the day. Because today, when we have most of the stuff, and there are, because cinematography is also problem solving in our country, in our context. And when those days of FTI, that really help me to to work with the bare minimum and create an acceptable image. And and of course, assisting does help. Assisting brings a sense of responsibility, a sense of it basically, it takes time actually while assisting. That I learned how to handle a set, while assisting Kiran sir, while assisting Kavin. I learned how to handle difficult situations rather than losing your temper, and what are the problem solving understandings that we have. Yes, it does help, but I also think that one should assist as varied number of people as a person can, rather than sticking to one person or one kind of cinematographer, because it opens a person up to different kind of image making, different kind of methods. Uh, but the but the biggest thing about assisting is that when a person assists, the person should assist the cinematographer, not for the money, not the director, not the producer, not the film. He or she is working for the cinematographer. So that is something that assistant cinematographer should always have in mind, that the priority when he or she is assisting somebody should be the DOP, rather than anybody or the money that they are getting. Because once you commit, your word is the last thing in this industry. That is all that I have to say. Yeah. Okay, now that's interesting. That's really interesting. Uh, so, uh, this is very kind of strange. I was in Bombay, in Bangur Nagar. I used to stay in Bangur Nagar back then, and I was having a real tough time, breaking through to the film part, because I was kind of I was sick of doing advertising, because I started doing my career with advertising, and I've only been doing advertising for 5-6 years before my first film happened, and that happened very strange. There was a post on Facebook that someone needed a DOP, and whenever there is a post like that, I would always apply. I just have a thing for that. So I applied, and a year later, I was contacted. Like a year later, like I applied for that film in 2015, and the production house came back to me in 2016 or 17 to shoot a film, to shoot that same film. I did not even remember that I applied, but later they only told me that they found me that. So yeah, so I believe that if anybody wants something in life, they should look for it in every corner, and miracles do happen. So that is how my first film came about. I applied it through Facebook, and I just did it. It happened. So my idea of choosing a script has been very, very simple. If when I read a script, I should be able to watch the film, that the script that I'm reading of. If I cannot watch that kind of a film, or basically it's film that I don't like, let's say, or the film that I like I love thrillers, I love fantasy, I like science fiction, I like murder mysteries. So when a scripts of those genre come to me, automatically I have a soft corner for them. Now then, but the script filtration does not happen in one go for me. First is the genre, second is how is it written, how is the story being told, because after so many years of being a cinephile, I have a fair idea of how the genres take the narrative, and so as a filmmaker, as a cinematographer, when I read a script, the second stage is the most difficult one, is how the story is being told. I should be, when I'm reading a script and I'm visualizing the film while reading it, or I'm making notes of it, I should be excited. If I'm not excited, if it is something that has been done to death, then I might still do it for the money part of it, and if the money is not good, then I won't do it. As simple as that. It has to either excite me, or it has to have a good money in it. As simple as that. So this is how I go about choosing a script. Also, a very important part of the script is the director. I love to take a narration from the director, and I want to see what is the director's vision, whether a director does have a vision or not, or a director is just trying to, under a producer's pressure, just trying to make his get done with by making a film. So when I see a director under producer's pressure trying to get done with a film, I know how much I have to give. But while I know the director has a vision, he's a visionary, then it means to give it all, to the film. Then it's like living, breathing that script. So generally, I am. That depends on the kind of project that I'm doing. You know, like recently, I am shooting with the Venice a lot. Venice Rialto, Sony Venice Rialto. I'm shooting a lot because of how tiny the camera becomes, and the kind of angles that you can access with it. But my all-time favorite. I am a Arri person. I have been. I grew up with Arri. I mean, not grew up, but like in FTI, like ARRI, I started working on celluloid cameras on ARRI 2C, ARRI ARRI 3, ARRI SR, ARRI 535. So ARRI, and I also believe ARRI makes the right now ARRI has the most ergonomic cameras. The design of the camera is very important to me. I really I'm sad that Aton is not producing digital backs anymore. uh, but a design of a camera should not be a box, you know. I That is one complaint I have with the red cameras, is that the red camera is just nothing but a box, you know. I don't like boxes. I like ergonomically designed cameras that should feel like an extension of your body, because a cinematographer has to operate that, live with it for 14 to 18 hours a day, every day, for the number of days of the shoot that's going on. So yeah, my love is ARRI. Any ARRI camera, eyes closed, it's ARRI. But when it comes to the look of the film, I do go for red, because red gives a very different texture because of its sensor to thrillers, murder mysteries, and all of that. The skin tone is a little different from the ARRI sensor to the red. And I shoot a lot, and I'm right now shooting with Venice Rialto, because the film that I'm doing, it needs a lot of handheld. It also needs, the camera has to become tiny and has to go into nooks and corners. So yeah, so these are the three cameras I really prefer. Other than that, I am a big fan of the Canon C series, the C200, the C300s. I wish that India has more of Canon C500s and 700s, because they are real good cameras. I am a big fan of the Canon C series also. Yeah, but that's all. That's mostly what I'm about the cameras. Yeah. So that depends. That's a completely logistical and production call. When we are shooting action sequences, like when I did the climax of Kali 2, we shot with 10 red cameras, because we were shooting. There was body effect, gun effect, wall effect. So, and there was a lot of and there was an extra of around 100 people. So we had to cover action from all angles, you know. So yeah, so that is where we use 10 cameras. Generally, to cover a scene, I would prefer a single camera, but a lot of times what happens in to pull off number of scenes in a day, you need two camera setups. So yeah, so then I go with two cameras. But generally I prefer going with a single camera. It becomes a less of a logistical nightmare. But uh, but uh, now the demand of the work is such that we might have to go for more than two cameras. That's how it is. So I have a detailed process about the look, you know. So what I do generally, whatever I'm shooting, I create the look. I have a reference of the look that I sit and create with the director and my colorist, whoever is the colorist for that project. I sit and decide on the look of the film, and then I create LUTs. Then I do the camera tests, actually proper camera test, where you actually hire a location, you hire lights, I hire cameras, equipments for half a day with actors, costumes, art. And I do a complete light contrast testing, where I have in this exposure I'm shooting with this contrast ratio, that contrast ratio, all of that. And then on basis of that, which I will be recreating in the film, so on basis of that, I sit with my director and my colorist, and I create looks, multiple looks of it, and I upload those looks on the camera or on the monitor on set, and then I shoot. So what happens for this process, the production might lose out on couple of lakhs of rupees, but what happens, it saves a lot of time in post. So in the grade, when you're automatically, you are at least 60% created, the look has been created. So now what we are doing is correction, and we are doing creative grading. So the time of post production really goes down, and especially if these days we have VFX everywhere, so it also helps the VFX a lot. So yeah, that's how I match the looks. That's a trade secret, but still I would like to share that. Uh, Generally, I create a mood board before every project that I do, whether it is an ad, whether it is a film, whether it's a documentary. I create a mood board for myself, and that mood board is when I do a visual research on the script, and on that basis, on that mood board, there is a section of lighting. So where I have references for paintings, references of photography, references of visual design, art installation, multiple things, because lighting does because lighting is not only natural. There are different kind of lighting. There's a mood lighting, there's the psychological lighting, so I create that mood board, and that mood board later on helps me to create to go through the ebbs and flows of the script, and according to that I decide on my lighting, that what kind of a lighting that I want to do I want to do a high key lighting, do I want to do a low key lighting, what is the mood of the film, where is the film going. So the lighting first gets decided by the script, the mood of the script, but secondly, how do I then once that is decided, then I go into my referencing, and then after the referencing is done, I try to adapt that to my real situation. Where am I, and how am I going about it, what is the ground reality on that location or on that film set, and that is how I break it down in steps. Mostly I do source lighting, sometimes I do practical lighting, so it goes, that depends on the context of the story or the script, so that's how I go about it. So what are the grip equipments I use? Again, that depends. If I'm doing a film, now the grip equipment depends on the grip operator, frankly. If I have a good Ronin operator, a gimbal operator, if I have a good gimbal operator with a mimic on it, firstly I don't use gimbal without a mimic. I do not. I completely see no sense in it, using a gimbal without a mimic, and I always use gimbals with a mimic on it, and when it comes to movement, different other kind of movement, I sometimes use steadicams. On Addy Trinity, sometimes I use dollies. Those are the things, but the most important part is when I'm using a Steadicam, who's my Steadicam operator, when I'm using a dolly, who is my dolly operator, when I'm using a gimbal with a mimic, who is my gimbal operator. So the grip equipment depends on the operator, absolutely, and I don't operate these things myself. I don't have any fantasy about being this great operator. I don't want to be an operator. Being an operator has never been on my agenda. So I am a cinematographer. I like to create images, and I like to collaborate with people, because all of these departments have a different skill set. These are all different skill sets. So if tomorrow I just I want to operate a gimbal, and then I sprain a back, and then I'm on bed for 15 days, these things are quite impractical according to me. So people who are good at should be hired for their skill set. For a lot of low angle, like I prefer to use Addy 360, Addy Trinity on a Steadicam, because that really goes on all the axes. While shooting chase sequences, I use the Scorpio arm a lot. I sometimes there's a very desi way of shooting it also, putting a Jimmy on a tracking car. Those things are pretty old school, but we do that also. But I love a stabilized hit. In the last few years, the stabilized head has come a long way, and if a production can afford it, it really really improves the image quality, and the movement of the camera, and it's really fast. When once you put the camera on a 360 head, the camera can move like a bird. So yeah, so that's how I go about it. So yeah, so my latest project. So right now I'm shooting my second feature film. With it's a science fiction fantasy called Sanduk. It's a dark humor set in the future during a war, and there's a war happening in the future, and a few people have come and taken shelter in a broken palace, and inside that palace there is a myth about a treasure chest, and what is inside that chest and how people get it. That's the whole story. That's the film. uh, yeah, so this is what I am working on as of now. I cannot speak more about it because I am under a non-disclosure agreement with the production, but this is the most I can talk about. And it is written and directed by the fantastic Siddharth Chanakya. It's his first big feature, and I wish him and the team all the best for this. Ah, I've made so many of them that I have stopped counting them. You know, every time I look back at my work, I feel that, oh shit, this is the blunder that I've done there. But yeah, the most memorable one from which I learned the most has been during FTI time. I There was a close-up shot of somebody I was taking, and I did not even notice that behind his head there was a light stand, there was a cutter stand, there was everything, the whole lighting and grip repertoire standing beside them in frame, composed in golden points, and I I don't know how I missed that. Maybe I was under two. I don't know. And when I saw that on post while I was editing that, I was like, oh shit, this is incredible. Uh, I Since then I have never there's never been anything of that sort in my frames. Because yeah, that was quite a big blunder, because that would have cancelled the project. And commercially, my blunders have been very limited, because most of the blunders I have done is in film school. As my seniors used to say, that you have come to a film school so that you can make mistakes, that when you go out of the gates of FTI, you should not repeat these mistakes. So yeah, so that's the one. So I would like to club two questions here. First part of the question is whether cinematography is intuitive or not, and second is inspiration. Cinematography is intuitive beyond a point. Till then, cinematography is discipline. So cinematography for me is discipline. Is discipline. Is first discipline, hardcore discipline, and second is the intuition part. Okay, because I believe without discipline, intuition won't work, and the other way around. You know. So in one devel I have developed an intuition, and over a period of time, I think everybody does that, but the discipline helps me to execute, to perform on the hardest days, on the most difficult days, because like everybody, we also have good days and bad days, and on bad days your discipline saves you. So, I don't come from a photography background, as I have mentioned before. I have not even touched a film camera before coming, or digital camera before coming to FTI. So, my inspirations, visual inspiration, doesn't necessarily have to be visual. My inspiration a lot of time comes from music. My inspiration comes a lot of times from from the way from art installations. My inspiration comes from paintings. My inspiration comes from poetry. What I search for is the rasa that I am finding in the script. If that rasa is resonating with another art form, that's how I operate actually. Any other art form, because what I try to understand is that every art form eventually it 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 emotes, it creates it transcends, and one has to understand that rather than going by the form of it, so my inspirations vary from illustration to like I follow a lot of illustrative artists who are visual designers. I follow a lot of paintings, modern painters, classical painters. I follow a lot of poets. I follow a lot of experimental video makers, people who make experimental images. I like people who work in mixed media. So I study. I'm really curious about different kind of art form, whether it's sculpture, painting, mixed media, art installation, you name it. I get my inspiration from everywhere. Anything which inspires, anything which has a common thread to what I'm working on, I try to take inspiration from that. And of course, nature is the biggest inspiration for me. Of course, mother nature is, because the way there are days the way the light falls on my balcony, and I just look at it and I'm like, wow. So that's how I go about it.